Alright, what's up guys? Vince Blaze here with Adventures Within Media. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm doing well myself. We've gained a little bit more freedom here in Manitoba. We can actually go in outdoor gatherings of up to 5 people. I know, right? So today we're going to be talking about some pretty exciting news, a recent purchase that I made for the company for myself. Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. I think I said that right. So if you guys know, I've been shooting on 2 EOS Rs for the larger part of the last year and so, and there's a lot of reasons why I felt like I needed to upgrade. I kind of mentioned it in my EOS R review. In regards to video, there's a lot of limitations. Yeah, I felt like I wanted to dedicate myself a little bit more to the video world, the cinema world. If you guys want me to make a video about that, why I got a Blackmagic camera, then let me know in the comments below and I'll make a video. But today I particularly want to talk about why I got this one over the 6K Pro. As most of you guys know who are probably clicking on this video, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro is already out, and you know, it's a really impressive camera. It's pretty much this camera internally with a few physical upgrades. So a tilting screen, internal NDs, extended battery grip, or better battery life, I should say, different batteries, and just a few more things that obviously make the camera slightly more professional. And so you would think that as someone who's going to make such a large investment, the wise thing to do would have been to get the most recent piece of equipment. After doing a lot of research and watching a lot of videos and, you know, assessing my personal needs for the business, for myself, I decided to opt for the 6K over the 6K Pro. And today in our video, we are going to dive into why I made that decision. So hopefully you guys can gain some insights. Hopefully you guys can make a good decision. If you are looking at both these cameras, hopefully this can help you make an educated decision in terms of which camera works best for you. So the first reason, and probably the most obvious, is the cost. So this camera in Canada is about $800 to $1,000 less Canadian dollars than the Pro version, which, you know, is a considerable amount of money. You know, when you're thinking about making this investment, some people might think, well, you might as well get the better one anyways. But I just felt like, you know, obviously I don't have unlimited funds. I used up pretty much all the money that I made from the recent gigs that I just had in order to be able to make this purchase. And you know, I don't have unlimited funds, and you know, money's always a question, and I want to make sure that I'm making the right investments for the company, for myself, in order to be able to move myself forward or the company forward in the long run, not just the short run. And so, like I said, it's about $800 or about $1,000 less than the Blackmagic 6K Pro. Like I said, it's a large investment, but also the fact is I could use that $1,000 to be able to invest into the rest of the gear that's required to be able to operate this camera at the level that I want to. So as you guys are probably noticing from here, there's a lot attached to the camera. It's not just the camera itself. So there's a monitor, which is the Atomos Ninja 5. There's a cage, obviously a tilted cage. There's a bunch of accessories to the cage. There's a handle, top handle. There's a, you know, there's a slot to be able to hold the SD card. There's rails. There's missing a matte box, which is hopefully on its way soon. There's a female battery. So all these accessories, they're quite costly as well. And it ended up costing about that extra $1,000 in order to be able to assemble all of this. And I knew that for the style of video that I want to shoot, as well as the reason why I actually got this camera in the first place, was to be able to shoot a certain type of cinematic video, a certain style of video. And in order to do that, I needed all these accessories to be able to operate it. And so I thought that it would be wiser, considering the fact that, you know, the internal of the camera, so the quality of the footage, the recording formats and frame rates, etc., all those features, pretty much all the recording features are all the same with this one and the Pro version. I figured that, you know, this was a much cheaper investment. So the number one reason I opted for this one instead of the 6K Pro version was cost. The second reason, and I kind of just mentioned it, is I'm going to rig this out. I did rig this out. I did rig it out. I've always loved looking at footage that is from like a big cinema rig, which is handheld, and you can tell the movement is very different than when you're holding, for example, an EOS R, where you're just holding it, it's very shaky. There's a clear difference in between the type of movement in the footage, and having a heavier, bigger rig, yes, is definitely tiring, but it does give you some added benefits of having more stable footage that you can use, especially when you're using it for handheld gigs, which is kind of the style that I want to go for moving forward. So I knew that I would be rigging this out anyways, and so again, tied up with the reason number one, which was cost, I knew that I would have some additional costs, including the monitor, the V-mount battery, and the cage, etc., in order to make this into a weapon, into a tool that I can actually use well and feel comfortable using on sets. So reason number two, you have to rig it out. The third reason I decided to opt for the 6K over the 6K Pro is, again, tied to the previous reason, is I'm rigging it out. And so rigging it out would create a lot of redundant features. For example, the 6K Pro has a longer battery life. I've now got a V-mount battery. That's pretty long. It's longer than the battery life of the 6K Pro would give you. I've got a monitor up top. I knew that I would need a monitor. You could argue possibly that you don't need a monitor with the 6K Pro, but I still think that just the position of where it is, down here wouldn't make it very accessible, wouldn't make it very easy to use. If ever I were to use it on a set where I need to put the monitor down here on the side where the director can look at the camera, it would just make it very difficult to see, and so I would eventually need a monitor anyways. Also, the internal ND feature, I don't have a matte box right now, as I mentioned, but I will have a matte box and I'll be able to have ND filters on top. That's not really redundant. It also, again, adds to the weight, adds to rigging it out, makes it look more professional. Yeah, I just think that I was having a lot of the features that I would have anyways in the camera. Now, there's the argument that I could be saving costs in terms of buying, for example, external ND filters and a matte box by just buying the 6K Pro. But there's also the added feature, again, the weight, the fact that it looks more professional. You can charge more usually when it looks more professional. So there's a lot of features that I felt would be redundant. Even if I got the 6K Pro, my plan would be to rig it out anyways. I'd probably get a V-mount battery, I'd have a monitor, and I'd probably still have a matte box. If I wanted to have any external filters on top of it, so polarizers. And so this kind of removed a little bit of the value that I'd be getting with the 6K Pro anyways. And so I'd rather, again, save money and just get the gear that I want to be able to operate it properly. So reason number three is there'd be a lot of redundant features. So the fourth reason for me choosing this camera is that it's smaller. You know, if I were to strip this down and just bring this traveling and just bring a bunch of LP6 batteries, I would be able to bring this fairly easily on a trip. The Blackmagic 6K Pro without the battery grip isn't that much bigger, but it is slightly bigger. For example, if I want to throw it onto a gimbal, it might be a little bit more difficult to balance. I'd probably have to upgrade to a Ronin S2, which I don't have. I only have the Ronin S. I haven't tried rigging this one out onto the gimbal yet, but I will try. But I'm fairly certain that having a lighter setup is just easier overall. Like I said, I would have to rig it up anyways if I had the Pro, and so just overall the weight would increase, maybe in my favor, as I mentioned, but it's like I said, it's more compact, it's smaller. If ever I need to carry it on a plane or something, I think that the smaller factor would probably help me. So reason number four is the size factor. It is smaller. The fifth reason why I chose this camera over the Pro version is that there was some screen issues at the beginning. And although they have released a firmware update, which allows you to, I think, be able to choose or adjust the temperature of the screen, I just didn't feel like it was as reliable of a tool, and there was a lot less backlash on the 6K reviews than there is on the initial 6K Pro reviews. And like I said, that's probably a minor issue. It just kind of scared me in terms of the quality. I didn't know if the manufacturing was as good, and I just kind of didn't want to risk it. It wasn't the biggest, it wasn't really the biggest factor in terms of me choosing this camera, but it just created that little amount of fear that I wouldn't necessarily, get the best product ever. And so the fifth reason why I chose this camera was just because I wanted to avoid any issues if possible. Not that this camera doesn't have any issues at all. I've only used it a handful of times, and there's just a few things that obviously came up. But compared to like a big major issue in my opinion, like the screen, I thought that it was safer for me to be able to just get this camera and not have to deal with a firmware update. And the sixth and final reason, which isn't that big of a deal either, is the fact that it uses LPE batteries. And I have a bunch of LPE batteries for the EOS Rs. And so the 6K Pro, I forgot what type of batteries they use, but they don't use LPE6, you use another battery, which gives you more battery life. Yes, I understand, but that's another upfront cost I would have to get right away if I wanted to be able to just pick it up and go. And so although I'm not particularly using a lot of LPE6 batteries, if ever I were to go on a trip, if ever I were to go to use it, I already have a bunch of those, and so it saves me a lot of costs. Just a minor little reason, but just another reason for me to choose this camera over the 6K Pro. So yeah, that's it in regards to all the reasons why I chose this camera over the Pro version. I also think that if I were to get the Pro version, this would obviously be a great B cam. It's also a little bit of a safer investment as I'm stepping into the Blackmagic ecosystem for the first time. So yeah, I just thought that, you know, all these reasons combined, this was a better purchase for me, myself, and the company that I'm running. So just a quick little recap. Obviously, the first reason was costs. It's a little bit cheaper to be able to get this camera. The second reason is I'm going to rig it out anyways, and so I can use some of those cost savings in order to be able to spend towards rigging it out, like the monitor, the cage, the V-mount battery, etc. With those added features of rigging it out, when you rig it out, the battery, etc., there would create a lot of redundant features that are one of the reasons why you would buy the 6K Pro over the 6K, which is a monitor, better battery life, ND filters, etc. So that's the third reason. The fourth reason being it's a little bit smaller than the 6K Pro. If ever I were to throw it onto a gimbal, this would probably make my life a lot easier. If I were to travel, just shoot, run and gun with it, then it's probably easier on my back and easier to fit into bags. And the last two reasons are the screen issues. I kind of wanted to avoid that right off the top. And also it uses LPE6 batteries, which I have a ton of since I already shoot in Canon. So yeah, those are my reasons why I chose this camera. Hopefully I made the right decision. I feel like it was the right move for me and my business, and I'm enjoying it so far. If you guys want to check out some of the footage that I've shot with this camera thus far, definitely check out the last two videos. There's 2 test footage that we shot. I'm really enjoying it so far, like I said, and I'm really looking forward to be able to use this camera on a lot more shoots and really push it to its limits. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs button. It actually does make a difference. And comment down below. Let me know, what are your arguments for the 6K Pro, against the 6K Pro? Did I make a good decision? Are you guys looking to buy this camera? I'm really curious. And I think this kind of conversation is super useful for my next purchase. Am I going to get the 6K Pro eventually? Or did I try to stick to another 6K instead of getting another 6K Pro? So there's a lot of debates. Let me know in the comments if you guys are interested in joining the conversation. Subscribe if you guys want more videos on the 6K. I'm going to be talking a lot about this one. A lot of exciting stuff that's coming on the channel. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.